Right, so you want to dive into Portugal's tourism, huh? Good choice. The numbers are pretty wild.
Yeah, it's exploding.
And you've given us a lot to work with. We've got reports from the INE, some Bank of Portugal analysis, the UNWTO, the WTTC, even some, let's say, colorful commentary from social media.
Yeah, having that mix, the hard data and what the experts are saying really gives us a more well-rounded view. It's kind of like instead of just looking at a map, we're actually out there walking the streets.
Okay, I like that. So let's jump right in. Portugal basically just had their biggest tourism season ever, right?
I think biggest might be an understatement. If you look at August 2024, according to the INE, they had 10.5 million overnight stays. That just shattered all the previous records.
Wow.
And that's almost a 4% jump from August 2023, which was already a big year.
Wait, hold on. Didn't last year see like a 13% jump in tourism?
It did.
And they're still going up from there? What are they doing? Are they giving away free, what are those custard tarts called?
You mean pastéis de nata?
Yes. Those. Free pastéis de nata at the border.
Huh. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but there are probably a few other things going on. So while the overall growth for 2024 is looking like a solid 5%, which is a little less than last year.
Right.
We got to remember that the whole global economy thing.
Yeah, not exactly smooth sailing.
Exactly. So for Portugal to not just keep up, but actually increase tourism during a global what are we doing with our money kind of time, that's impressive.
Yeah, like everyone else is kind of sipping their economic cocktail and Portugal's over there like, yeah, shots, shots. But okay, this is where I got a little tripped up.
All right, so get this. Imagine Lisbon. August, sunshine, good vibes, you know the scene. Turns out, it wasn't just a figment of our imaginations. August 2024 smashed all the records for Portugal. Overnight stays, through the roof.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable when you look at the numbers. We're talking 3.8 million guests.
3.8 million.
Enjoying over 10.5 million nights in Portugal. But, as always, we're here to dig a little bit deeper.
Not on those glossy Instagram posts, right?
Exactly. And what's fascinating isn't just the sheer volume, but what's driving it, right? David Lamelas, he's a product manager at Climber RMS, uses this great analogy. He calls it a perfect storm.
Ooh, a perfect storm.
Think about it. Higher average prices because the demand is so high, Portugal's popularity is booming, and then, just to spice things up, a calendar quirk.
Yeah.
August 2024 had not 3.
Wait, don't tell me.
4 weekends.
4? No way.
4 weekends in August. It's like the stars align for an epic summer.
Okay, that definitely explains a few things. 4 weekends in August, I'd be packing my bags too. But let's unpack these numbers a little further because this tourism boom, it's not uniform, is it? Some regions are seeing a much more dramatic surge than others, like, for instance, the Azores and the Peninsula de Setúbal. They're emerging as, like, the unexpected rock stars of this whole thing.
It really is interesting to see how these different areas are kind of approaching or maybe even experiencing this whole tourism wave, You've got places riding that wave, and then others, like Madeira, which is beautiful, don't get me wrong.
Stunning, absolutely stunning.
They actually saw a dip in visitor numbers. Makes you wonder, has Madeira maybe, reached peak popularity, at least for certain times of the year? Or is something else going on?
It does make you think, right? Because are we talking about a plateau in Madeira's tourism journey? Or could it be something else? Like maybe hotels there are being strategic, upping their prices, knowing they've got a limited number of rooms to offer during these peak times. It's a question worth keeping in mind as we dive deeper because, spoiler alert, it pops up again.
But before we get too caught up in these, volcanic views and beachside escapes, there's more to this whole Portugal tourism boom than just vacationers soaking up the sun, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lamelas points out this other key player in this whole surge. A wave of huge events that hit Portugal in 2024.
Right, like remember those photos, Taylor Swift, the crowds were insane? Exactly, and it wasn't just her. You had the Surgeon Medical Congress, the REB Summit, all these massive gatherings bringing in a whole different crowd, and it's definitely having a ripple effect.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, but since you brought up these big events, it takes us right back to our little Madeira mystery. Because if these events are becoming Madeira's main strategy for pulling in tourists, especially during those peak season times, could that actually be making it tougher for them to hit that sustainable growth everyone's talking about?
The million-dollar question. And a perfect example of how complex this tourism puzzle really is. But speaking of complexities, we can't forget about the travelers themselves and how they're spending their money. Because, get this year, It's our American friends who are leading the charge. We're seeing a 15% jump in American visitors compared to last year.
Wow, 15%. They're really making the trip. But wait, it gets even more interesting because their spending isn't just keeping pace with that increase, it's exceeding it.
Exactly. Their spending shot up by 18%. So you have to wonder, are Americans just like going all out on luxury experiences? Or are prices just, stretching their travel budget further? Are they getting their money's worth?
It's a question worth asking because this spending spree has actually boosted the U.S. to become the third largest source of tourism revenue for Portugal. Talk about a global shift.
Absolutely. It's not just about how many people are visiting, but who they are, what they're spending, what kind of impact they're having. We need to look past the numbers and see the people.
Exactly. See their stories. So while we're sitting here picturing those stunning beaches, those incredible meals, you have to wonder, is this Portuguese tourism boom just a blip? Or is this the beginning of something big, a whole new chapter for travel?
It's a question a lot of us are asking.
Right.
And what's happening in Portugal is really part of this bigger story, this global travel comeback after those tough pandemic years. Get this, the UN tourism, they're saying international tourist arrivals are at 96% of pre-pandemic levels.
96%. So we're almost back to normal pre-pandemic travel levels. That's wild. But are people spending like they used to? I mean, have we really gone back to our old travel habits? Or has something changed?
The million-dollar question, right? And the answer is, well, it's complicated. Because while those visitor numbers look good, almost back to where they were, spending habits, they tell a bit of a different story. Some countries, they've bounced back like crazy. Albania, Serbia, their tourism revenue has more than doubled since 2019.
More than doubled. Okay, so people aren't just traveling again. They're exploring new places, spending their money differently. I wonder what's behind that shift.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Are people looking for those like off-the-beaten-path adventures? Maybe they want something more meaningful, those deeper connections with local cultures. Or maybe it's just about the money. Maybe in a world with, inflation and everything, people are looking for more affordable options. The WTTC, they're a big name in the travel industry. They predict tourism will make up a massive 20.1% of Portugal's GDP in 2024.
20.1%. That's a huge chunk of their economy. It just shows how vital tourism is for Portugal, but it also makes you think even harder about sustainability, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because here's the flip side. All this tourism is great for the economy, but some experts are saying Portugal needs to, step up its game when it comes to infrastructure, especially airports. If they want to handle all these visitors without ruining what makes Portugal so special.
Right. It's about finding that balance, isn't it? How do you manage growth but keep the heart of a place intact? Protect the culture, the environment. Can you have it all? I mean, can Portugal really welcome all these tourists and still stay true to itself?
The million-euro question.
And get this. It could mean over 1.3 million jobs.
Over 1 million. Wow. Okay, so tourism's not just a side gig for them, it's the main event.
Pretty much.
But if they're putting all their eggs in that one basket...
Which they kind of are.
Right. That's going to come with some risks too, right? What happens if things go really south with the global economy?
That is the million-euro question, isn't it? It's like you've got this beautiful basket, it's woven, it's sturdy, you put all your eggs in it, but then you got to worry about what happens if something bumps into it, And that brings us to another thing you found in your research. The staffing problem.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's talking about the boom, but who's actually there working it?
That's it. Classic supply and demand, but with actual humans this time.
What a nightmare. So you need the tourists, but you also need to be able to actually, handle the tourists.
It's like planning a huge party, right? But forgetting to hire anyone to work it.
Recipe for disaster.
Totally. And this is where those unique island challenges, like in Madeira, really come into play.
Because it's one thing to find qualified people, but finding qualified people who want to live on an island.
And work seasonally, probably.
Yeah. Not easy.
Not easy at all. And that actually connects to another big thing. You found the whole airport capacity issue.
Ah, yes, the airport bottleneck.
It's a classic.
With everyone flying in, can Portugal's airports even keep up?
It does seem to be a recurring theme, yeah. And that whole debate about building a new airport in Lisbon?
Right.
That's how serious it is?
Because on the one hand, more airports, more flights.
More tourists.
Exactly. But on the other hand...
Think about what that does to the environment, to the people who actually live nearby. It's a tough one.
It's like, if you've got traffic, the solution seems obvious, right? Build more roads. But does that actually fix it?
Sometimes it just makes more traffic.
Right. Okay, before we go too far down the airport rabbit hole, though, let's zoom back out to the bigger picture for a sec.
Sounds good.
because Portugal might be dealing with all of this. But globally, tourism is. Well, it's painting an interesting picture, isn't it?
It really is. You know, that UNWTO report you sent was spot on. International tourism is practically back to where it was before.
Before the pandemic shut everything down.
Exactly. By July this year, international travel was at 96% of 2019 levels.
See, you can't keep people from traveling forever. But what does that mean for Portugal?
It's a double-edged sword, really. So they're in a great position to benefit from everyone wanting to travel again.
Yeah,
But that also means everyone else is trying to benefit too.
so the competition is fierce.
You bet.
It's like we've been saying this whole time, right? How do you manage all of this growth? Keep things running smoothly, make sure everyone's happy, tourists and the people who live there too. It's a lot.
It really is. And this is where it goes beyond just like the money and the numbers. It gets
Yes.
human.
The human impact of all of it. Like we talked about those job numbers, but what about the people actually doing those jobs, living in these places where everyone wants to go?
Exactly. Can't forget about that side of it. Tourism can be great, obviously, for the economy and all, but it can also put pressure on, well, everything. Resources get stretched thin, the actual places, the cities, whatever, they have to handle all those people. And then, the people who live there, they feel it too.
So how do you find that balance? How can Portugal make this work for everyone? Not just the tourists, not just the people making money off tourism, but everyone.
It takes being smart, honestly, and thinking long term. So investing in the right things. And I don't just mean like more hotels, making life better for the people who live there, making sure those tourism jobs, they're good jobs, fair pay, training, all of that. And this is a big one. Protecting what makes Portugal special in the first place. The culture, the beautiful places. Don't let tourism ruin the thing that brought people there to begin with.
Right. Don't eat all the pastéis de nata yourself. Save some for everyone else.
Exactly. Share the good stuff, make sure it lasts.
I like it. Okay, who's coming from where? And those stats on tourist origins. Talk about a plot twist.
Right. Canadians and Americans are pouring into Portugal, while Brazilians, who used to be their bread and butter, they're heading elsewhere. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's like a game of musical chairs. Someone move the chairs.
The travel landscape is constantly shifting. And to understand these shifts, we need to look at the bigger picture.
All right, lay it on me. What's the big picture analysis here?
Well, the strong U.S. dollar is definitely a factor. It makes Europe in general, including Portugal, much more affordable for American travelers.
The exchange rate is huge. I mean, that can literally make or break your travel budget.
Tell me about it. And for Canadians, it's a similar story. Their dollar has been doing pretty well too. But it's not just about pure economics. There's also this pent-up demand after the pandemic. People are eager to make up for lost time to experience new things.
That revenge travel thing I've been hearing about.
Exactly. And Portugal ticks a lot of boxes for those post-pandemic travelers. It's safe, it's beautiful, it's got history and culture, amazing food.
And let's not forget the beaches.
Right. What more could you want?
So that explains the North American surge. But what about Brazil? Why the decline?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's probably a combination of things. First off, the Brazilian real hasn't been doing so hot, which makes travel to Europe more expensive. Plus, there have been some visa issues that have made it more complicated for Brazilians to visit Portugal.
Ugh, bureaucracy. The ultimate travel killer.
Right. And let's not forget that Brazil itself has become a major player in the global tourism scene. They've got incredible natural beauty, vibrant cities. They're giving Portugal a run for its money.
It's like a tourism showdown.
Exactly. One destination's loss is another one's gain. And this constant ebb and flow of travelers, it just highlights how important it is for destinations to be adaptable, to constantly innovate and evolve their offerings.
They got to stay ahead of the curve, right?
100%.
So what does all this mean for the future of Portuguese tourism? What's the big takeaway here? So we've got these shifting tourism tides, regions battling it out for visitors, like a high-stakes game of strategy, right? Right. What's the winning playbook for Portugal going forward?
Well, I think the name of the game is diversification. It's great that they're attracting Americans and Canadians, but they can't just rely on those markets.
Right, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And that's where those unique selling points come in, like we were saying. The Azores are onto something with their ecotourism and wellness offerings. Those are trends with some serious staying power.
So more volcano hikes and less, I don't know, fighting for a spot on a crowded beach.
I mean, it's all about balance, right? And Portugal has those incredible beaches, and people will always want to experience them. But they can also offer something more, Those off-the-beaten-path adventures, those deep dives into Portuguese culture. That's what today's traveler is looking for.
It's about creating experiences, not just itineraries.
100%.
But it's not just about attracting more tourists, is it? It's about attracting the right kind of tourists.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
The ones who will respect the environment, appreciate the culture, contribute positively to those local communities.
Absolutely. Sustainable tourism isn't just some trendy buzzword. It's essential for Portugal's long-term success. And it's not just about protecting the environment, it's about preserving the very heart and soul of what makes Portugal so special.
It's about making sure that everyone benefits from tourism, not just a select few.
Exactly, and that takes careful planning, collaboration, and maybe even a little bit of soul-searching, right? It's about asking those tough questions.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of tourism do we want? How can we make sure that growth benefits local communities? How do we protect our natural and cultural heritage?
Big questions.
They are, but they're crucial. If Portugal wants to avoid the problems that other destinations have faced with over-tourism, they have to be proactive.
Right. Nobody wants to see those stunning beaches overrun or those charming villages turned into tourist traps.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance, that sweet spot between economic prosperity and preserving the essence of what makes Portugal unique. And that's what makes this whole conversation so interesting, isn't it?
It really is. We started by just looking at hotel numbers, but this has become about so much more. We're talking about sustainability, responsible travel, the future of the industry itself. It's been quite a journey.
It really has, and it just goes to show you there's always more to uncover, more to learn, more to explore when it comes to this stuff.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to everyone listening for joining us on this deep dive into Portuguese tourism. We hope you found it insightful, eye-opening.
And maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Exactly. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep.